Hello, my friends. Kellen here. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a conversion issue on our last podcast, and it is impossible for me to get it out of the void, which means we're making a little bit of a pivot since it is currently Monday right now, and I'm doing the editing for the podcast this week. We're going to go ahead and do a DBS Throwback, so enjoy our very first and second episode this week. And then next week, we'll get right back to regular podcast schedule. Thanks so much. Welcome to the DBS Films podcast. My name is Kellen. With me, as always, is my brother Brendan. And today we are going to be talking Gone, which was the first movie that we had made. So when I say Gone, what kind of pops right into your head, Brendan?
Well, Gone was one of our smoother shoots. The process all the way through wasn't too difficult. The issues that we encountered were mainly post-production. But for our first movie, I'm proud of it. It's not the best in the world, but it has some character.
I definitely do think it has a lot of character, in my opinion. I think to me, it's almost something where, we were kind of children of summer or with wide eyes of what it's like to make a movie. So, in the writing process and the filming process, I think a lot of things that we thought were going to be either scarier or, look different, we just had no clue. And when they came out on film, they ended up being a little bit different than expected. But overall, you got to start somewhere. And I think the best thing someone can do is start something. No matter what it is, if you start something and finish it, you'll end up learning. So we're going to dive into Gone. Again, you can unfortunately not see Gone because it is not available on Amazon anymore after the great Amazon purge of indie films, which occurred. However, if you do join our Discord, you will be able to get a link to Gone so you can watch that one. It's kind of like a super fan exclusive. So, really, when you were going into this project, it was, kind of the first feature that we were doing. What was kind of the thoughts in your head about, executing on this project?
I mean, like you said, we were children of summer. It was, we'll go out there, we'll shoot this. I think it's maybe 4 days. We'll knock it out real quick. The acting will be great. The shots will be great. And, we came from writing, like all my writers and myself had a business already for 4 or 5 years of publishing books. And our books do very well. They're top of the charts in Amazon. So we're like, all right, we got really good writers. This is going to be a great script. And that's when I learned that there's a huge difference between writing a book and writing a screenplay. They're completely different. And also, there's just a lot of pitfalls as far as what you can do as an indie studio. There's just a lot of scenes that you just cannot do. They're just too difficult or they need a higher budget. And so, when we went through Gone, we were stepping on landmines left and right. But the good news is we look back on them now, we saw the stuff that worked. We saw the stuff that didn't work. And we just put the stuff that didn't work on the infamous DBS ban list. We don't do that stuff anymore. And we take the 3 or 4 things that were like, hey, you know what, that works really well. And you'll see some of those things in our other movies.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And we'll talk about it more on our next episode when we go into The Invited. But I think one of the biggest things that almost held us back a little bit with The Invited was, we didn't quite have that finished product with Gone going into The Invited. So, once you end up finishing and editing the movie completely, that's when you really see how it turns out. So, you almost you write something, it's nice and easy. You film something, you're kind of, really high on the moment of being on set. And then you look at it in the editing room, and that's really when you kind of learn what works and what doesn't work. So, walk me through what was kind of the first idea for it. Cause I remember when we were talking about it, I was working downtown at the time, and you're like, hey man, I have a script for like a movie that we're doing. Like, would you want to, take a look at it and whatnot? You'd mentioned you're doing some movie stuff, but this is the first time you really kind of reached out to me and said, hey, I really want to look at, what's some feedback on this. And to me, reading the script, it was really kind of, we had like 2 or 3 scares in there where it's like they walk down a road and they're supposed to go back and it doesn't quite happen. So where did the idea kind of come from with Gone?
Well, we wanted to make it an anthology. So when you're talking to Amazon at the time, they wanted 30-minute episodes. So sort of like Black Mirror of horror. And we had chosen to go with, I believe, like a creature. We kind of want to keep it vague. I believe it was like aliens. I'm not, honestly, I can't even remember. Like,
it was a flashlight.
But we had to stay in our constraints of the budget. And we try to make something, that was similar to Blair Witch. It's out in the woods, you're isolated, but was more of just like an alien twist, I believe, was like the general concept we were going in with. And we just we went head first with it.
Yeah, it was definitely something that jumping in head first in the deep end. When you're, making this, what was kind of, the writing process was like? Because at this point in time, the book writers were they were very heavily involved for the first few movies we did. And as you mentioned, there's a big difference between screenwriting and book writing. You can be a fantastic screenwriter, a fantastic book writer, and you might not be able to make that jump just because it's different styles. Really reading a script, people don't read scripts for entertainment. They read scripts as almost a blueprint for making that movie. So I think that kind of leads to difference. But what was kind of the writing process like? Walk me through how long that took, the revisions. What was kind of the overall vibe?
Yeah, we had a writer's room because we have writers on there, and I thought the writers did a great job. I'm very happy with all the movies that my writers have worked on. I thought they did a great job on all of them. We need more reps, and eventually I think the highest level of what DBS is going to become is more of how television operates, where you have multiple writers working on one project to create the best script possible. And I think that's the highest, and that's really what they do in Hollywood right now too. And that would be my goal, is to have, a writing room of 10 people cranking out the best content, really honing on dialogue, and trying to make the best possible script. And my writers did a great job. Everyone did a great job on these projects. We just didn't have enough reps to really, get where we needed to go. So the writing room, we had a whole bunch of writers. So the foundation was there. I operated sort of like a showrunner, so I was like kind of guiding ideas, but at the same time, I had no idea what I was doing. If anything, I was probably more detrimental to the process. But that's how it was. We fleshed it out. Everyone kind of came up with ideas. We try to pace it with like a 3-act structure with like beats every 10 minutes. As Kel alluded to, you got to have more than 3 beats in a movie. And the beats that we thought were going to be impactful just never turned out very well. But that was pretty much the process. There's a lot of collaboration, a lot of feedback, probably too much feedback, because at some point you got to cut your losses and just run with something, as opposed to, spending 6 months writing, a 30-minute pilot.
Yeah. And again, I completely agree. I mean, by no means is screenwriting easy at all. It is a very, very intense thing to do. And to just kind of throw people and say, hey, all right, we're making a movie. It's really tough. And it's easier now in hindsight to kind of look back at those things and say, okay, well, is this going to hit or is this going to not hit? But I think one thing for writers that, I would hit is, you in your head when you're writing it will never be that vivid. It will never be that vivid on screen. It's always going to be a compromise. So you really got to almost kind of go over the top, but then again, you have the budget, but you have to almost kind of really ensure that whatever is going to be scary is going to be scary. One of the things that we allude to, one of the big scares we were counting on in the movie was the car doesn't start, which is, a typical horror movie trope. And it just, when we filmed it, a car didn't start. So it's one of those things where you learn in hindsight. And again, I do agree, they did a fantastic job in putting something together on a timeline, getting everything done. So it's by far not easy. But those are one of the things where, the more you work at something, the more you kind of understand the pitfalls and also the success points. Really, we have a band list and we have the DBS classics. We got 2 things we go through, and we just understand, what makes it easier to film that. So when you had the script, what were you kind of feeling at that point in time? Because the script is really now a living, breathing document for us in the sense of how we alter and change it. We're never going to be tied down to what the script says. It's more or less of what we're doing. But when you had that script in your hands, how are you kind of feeling like at that point in time before going into casting and everything?
I thought it was good. Like I thought it was a good pilot, a good thing to just test out. I thought we were able to shoot it. It would come under the budget that we wanted it to come under. I didn't think it was like the greatest thing in the world, but I think it was enough to move forward in the process. And usually when you write a script, when you finish a script is the happiest you're going to be with your movie. Because once you go on set, it's just disappointment, and you're going to have to make concessions, and you're going to have to cut things, and things that, are in your head didn't turn out very well. And then you get to editing, and, cuts don't cut together, and you have to, cut certain scenes. Some of your footage could get deleted. You have audio issues. So, going from the script all the way down, once you start shooting, it's just, you're going to take a lot of L's along the way.
And that's why I was curious when I asked you about it. Because again, you're going to be really happy when you have the script and you're going to be pretty motivated with it. I think the biggest thing, though, more importantly, is it was filmable. And I think the biggest thing I see with a lot of scripts and a lot of movies, your number one thing is finishing a movie. And a lot of people who just watch movies or just watch indie films, they don't understand that you go through such a nightmare to get that process done of work and just making the movie, having something that's presentable. That's not always the case. There's a ton of movies that don't even ever get made. They don't get seen the light of day. They have to go through rounds of scrapping. So the simple fact that, you did have a movie that was within those limitations is really huge. And again, for something that Gone, I think it was really clean. I think it's something where, heck, it's easy for us now to think of a movie to make because we've done it so many times. But had you said, hey, I need a 30-minute, anthology here, what is it going to be? That's definitely not the easiest task. So you got the script. Walk me through the kind of production. How'd you get the team together when it comes to, the production side of things, the actors? How do we kind of get the crew together?
Yeah, so we were lucky because I work in a co-working business or a building. So we had a camera guy that did videos that worked down the hall. We had worked with him on some other projects. We brought him in and said, hey man, you want to make a movie? Totally, he was all about it. Like I said, I had a staff of writers that were ready to work. We got the sound guys, came in. It was just a lot of sweat equity on this one. We did all our casting through a local university, Full Sail. But yeah, I think the actors got paid and maybe the DP, but everyone else is just working off sweat equity.
Yes, I mean, and again, that's another good thing with, what we like about the passion of our community that we're building here is you got to be passionate about this, especially at this level. This isn't I think actually in general, I don't think you can ever find a cushy film job unless maybe you're already thrust into the higher up executive level, but you're going to be working hard. And I mean, they know you're just as passionate, unfortunately, when it comes to even on the bigger sets. So, for someone like us, we really try and treat all of our cast and crew as good as you can, but it's going to be a tough one. You're going to work a lot, so having a good crew is critical. That's again is something where you can make a movie by yourself, but you can only make a very limited amount of movies by yourself. So when you had the production, everything set up and whatnot, what was kind of going through your head when you're like, all right, I got it. I got the team, we got the cabin, we convinced them to let us have a movie there. What was was it like sensing dread? Because I know, I'm not going to say dread, but it almost feels like, when a movie's coming up, it's like a long race or it's like a long something that's kind of there, the schedule's there, and then boom, here we go, we execute. So how are you kind of feeling going into the filming?
Well, I was just, the only thing I was thinking about is no matter what happens, get something that we can upload.
Yeah.
That's all I want, is just a finished product. And that should be, honestly, in an indie set, that should be the producer and the director's number one thing. Get something that you can upload. Because if you're missing shots, if you have to do pickups, it's just going to be a mess. And there's no guarantee your actors are going to come back after, working them for 12, 14-hour days. So just the minimal viable product is get something that you can be finished. And like Kel said, there's a ton of indie films out there that never see the light of day. And if you can't get something uploaded, if you can't get feedback on it, number one, you don't have a shot at getting your money back, but you're going to learn along the way. Obviously, you're going to find mistakes that you don't repeat, but really getting people's feedback on it, really diving deep into it and getting the editing done and the color done and the sound done. is a huge process, and you'll learn so much from that, as opposed to, you know, giving everyone just a couple of clips for the demo reel. So as a testament to the team, that we were able to get this together, especially with our first one. We had no people with, film school experience on this set. The fact that we got it done, we got it up on Amazon, and it made its money back. So that is a win all the way around. But looking back on it, I had no idea what was going to happen. I really had no clue.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely the risk of it. And I think, touching on that a little bit, I think doing the work to get it completed is often the hard way. And I think a lot of times the easy way out for indie developers or just people in the film industry is, oh, well, we can pick this up, or we'll refilm this, or we'll do that. Cause those are all, oh, no, I can fix this later. But a lot of times it's sitting there and figuring out how to actually get it done before you kind of fall into that cycle. Because again, if you want to make it perfect, you got to understand filmmaking it's just a compromise. It's a compromise of what you want to do versus what you actually were able to do. So that's always huge. And again, Gone, regardless of how it came out, it is, it's the first. We'll always point back to Gone. It's always going to hold a place in our heart of, the start of it. So that's one of the coolest things with films as well too, is, you can always go back and look at something. And I think the goal of any film content creator or anything like that is just create, try and get to that finished product, try and get it done, because, worst comes to worst, you'll force yourself to learn how to get it through to the end. That's one of the better things that you can do. And I think that was a huge, that had Gone not been able to upload, there would be no DBS Films. I feel like he probably would have said, nope, we're out of here, in the sense of, or at least later on, it was really something where it almost feels like you're kind of jumping from landmine to landmine right after they explode just to get where we're at. So that's definitely there. In hindsight, was there anything in pre-production, now that I mean, I'm sure we will completely redo that script a little bit, in the sense of we just know things that work now on camera, and that's just a testament to making 9. Was there anything that you saw that was kind of a big, red flag that you wish you would have noticed or put more idea into?
I mean, knowing what I know now, it just I would have made it like a witch or something in the woods, like a shapeshifter. And Aliens is tricky. There's a lot of special effects. Like, you'll see them and they're just not done very well, where we could have made something a lot easier, made our lives easier, if we would just realize, all right, don't do aliens, just put a monster out there and you'll get, everything will be so much better. Because the trope of going out to the cabin, your car doesn't start, it's in a ton of movies, and you just have I watched a Bigfoot movie the other day. It's like, it could have been Bigfoot and it would have been totally fine. And aliens don't sell as well as much as, shapeshifters or, Bigfoot does. But as far as anything other than that, story-wise, still thought it was good. Pre-production for indie studios, you're going to live and die by pre-production. If you don't do pre-production, you're going to have problems on set. And I think 99% of the problems with indie films can be solved in pre-production and casting. Just really make sure you're casting, people that are into the project and, that understand what's going to happen, and understand their roles, really work with them on making sure they understand their roles. But pre-production stuff, you really got to make sure you know how to use all the equipment. We had a lot of issues with equipment on this set. We're just inexperienced people using the equipment. And, a lot of this stuff, if we would have went out and try to shoot it ourselves or just do some test footage, we would have realized it was a bad idea.
I think one thing that we do now, that kind of spawned out of this, is our day zero. So can you explain what a day zero is?
So day zero would just be our pre-production stuff, where we're trying to find, because a lot of locations, we don't have the luxury of going on there and really, scouting out or, figuring out where we're going to shoot. So day zero is usually we get to the location and we just start shooting, but it's usually just, the skeleton crew. The actors usually don't arrive yet, and we're just trying to find the best locations for pop scares. We're trying to find, I'm trying to take the script and just map it out to the location. But even day zero stuff, like we should upload the Cabin 13 day zero stuff, because I think the super fans would like that.
Yeah.
It's just us testing out, how does the mask look outside of a window. We tested out like banging on the windows and putting the paper on the windows. Just different pop scares. For the next movie that we're going to be doing, the shapeshifter concept, we're probably going to try and shoot the entire intro, which is a 7-minute scene, just to really make sure that you know what you're doing, because it's so much easier to shoot something a second time versus being like, does this work or does this not work. And for a lot of our movies, we've went into shooting not knowing how to do a scene. And we're just like, well, we'll figure it out when we get there. And fix it in post and figure it out when we get there are just not things you should be doing.
Yeah, time is your biggest asset on set, and even if it's just knowing, how it walks there. I mean, one of the biggest things that's good is we would do the day zero, and I definitely agree. We need to look at uploading some of that stuff, because basically it would be me playing all of the actors and doing the special effects. But what it also gave us is, now that we have the actors on set, we literally have something to show them, so they have an idea of what we're looking to do. So pre-production, day zeros, anything that you can do to set yourself up to have more time on set is really going to be one of the biggest advices that I can give any indie studio, just because you will be surprised how quickly time goes when you're on set. It just slips through your hands, and before you know it, you have 1 day left and you have a day and a half to film. And what ends up happening is you lose a lot of scenes that you compromise on, and they affect the final project. So walk me through the location where you guys ended up doing. What was the idea? I mean, it was pretty out there.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly where this was. It was in North Florida, and we had a guy that allowed us to shoot in his cabin, and so we went up there. And I mean, it was just your standard cabin. It was fine. I'd shoot there again if I could. I thought it was kind of a cool spot.
It had a good look to it, like a smaller one. Did the actors stay on set for this one, or I think Derek or our DP drove in, or what was kind of, because usually what we try and do now is to maximize as much time as we humanly can, is to have everyone stay on set. So you basically sleep, wake up, film, eat, sleep, wake up, film. What was kind of
I feel like they did. I feel like I slept there. We had 2 writers, the DP, and I think the actors all stayed.
Because I remember when we did the Reach filming, which we'll get to, I was on set for that one, and I slept on the couch there, which is something you're used to, in the sense of just crashing there. It does, honestly, it would be a good idea. Plus, I think it does kind of almost build camaraderie a little bit. And the biggest issue of all is you don't have to be like, hey man, where are you? It's call time. So I think that's another little tip for it. So you get there, you start filming. Walk me through, how was day one? Any issues on that one? Because I wasn't there for those.
I mean, I'm trying to bring it back. It was
It's in the shimmer.
I don't remember it being like it. Honestly, looking back on it, it was probably one of our easier shoots. Now it was only 30 minutes. So for 30 minutes, now we're shooting an hour and a half, essentially, and it's more technical now. But I don't remember a time where we ever really like running out of time. And the writer who was working on this did a really good job of, making sure we had a shot list, making sure everything is scheduled out well. And this is really like, I never was worried about time on this one. It was pretty smooth, especially for a movie that had a lot of night stuff. Like shooting at night and throughout the night is difficult. And the actors were great. Like they knew their lines, they knew what they were trying to do. They did a phenomenal job. So I think this one was honestly one of our smoother ones. We did have some issues with some equipment. I know the Ronin broke. We didn't know how to use the Ronin. I think we had some audio stuff that was going wrong, but there wasn't anything in there that was like, oh no, we're not going to get a finished product. I don't think I thought at all until post-production was when we got our first real scare. This one never had an issue with like, are we going to get this movie completed?
And I think one thing you will feel momentum on a set. It is palpable when things are moving good and when things are moving bad. So that is something where momentum is honestly one of the biggest things you can do because we're filming multiple days, long shoots, and you can really almost feel the actors, and not only the actors but yourself and everyone just kind of lose that extra that extra gas that you can put on it. And what ends up happening is, you know, you get one shot at filming. So having that momentum, having a smooth shoot is super critical. It goes back to post-production. Really, the filming is kind of like your execute. How well did you prepare for, and let's go ahead and make the rubber meet the road. So you end up filming this one. What would you say the biggest things you learned from filming this one? Like what was, and this is before post-production too. So before, because again, post-production is almost like you pull the mask off of like the Scooby-Doo villain and you see what you really got in front of you. That's when you really learn. But what was kind of your overall, was it, man, I'm going to be making movies and the next year I'll be inking deals with Universal and, me and Blumhouse will be hanging out by his yacht, all that cool stuff? Or what was kind of your thoughts?
Well, I think just looking, I was just more focused on the top down, vision of how this, how can I make the production better for the next one? How can we schedule this better? How can I work with the crew better? That was like my thing. So I was really on the lookout for this one, on things where I could just improve it. Because this was a minimal viable product. I was like, okay, we're going to make this movie, but I'm planning to make a ton more. What little things can I do to make the next set run more efficient, so we can get more footage, that we can, make sure that the actors are, have the ability, I can give the ability for them to create a better performance. What little things can I really just hone up and fix up?
I think one thing that's unique for us is we have a really business-minded approach to everything. A lot of creatives, when you're just dealing with this, you don't really think about, how well can I market this, or, what are the budgets, what's the line items here? You're kind of focusing on the vision. And again, there's nothing wrong with that in the sense of, you can really want to be a creative and that's what you enjoy. But you have to deal with the harsh reality of you got to make some type of way to recoup your money, whether that's, working with investors or producers and being able to provide for them. But one of the things is, I've always really seen this as essentially a film company run like a startup more than anything, where you have your MVP, you have you're rolling it out. And really what you're looking for is what's that next step to where the flywheel really starts to move and you can go ahead and just scale from it. So that doesn't surprise me that you're already kind of, seeing, well, where can we do this? And honestly, just looking at how this, I mean, The Invited, I think is the prime example of a set of The Invited to like the set of Girl in Cabin 13. There's a lot of areas where we were able to just kind of maximize and improve it. So I'm not surprised that you're already looking at ways that you can improve it. So overall, you would say, give me a 1 out of 10, how you were feeling after filming.
Um, I was probably like a 7 or 8. I felt pretty good. Obviously, I had no real post-production skills, so I didn't know what that process was. But after wrapping there, I felt like we got enough to obviously upload it. And, I thought the actors did a phenomenal job. And I thought, the DP did a good job shooting. So I felt like we had everything we needed to be successful.
So I will say one thing, as you've developed into someone who does all aspects, including the post-production, my feelings now is you're a little bit more of a pessimist when we get done with filming. Usually what I'll hear is, oh, this is going to be a wild one, or, you're almost ready for what post is. Now that we've been through multiple posts, you're ready to almost kind of, after you film something, I feel like, in the early years when we're on set, it's like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. Like, wow. Now it's like, oh my God, I hope this cuts together. Like, please let it work. I'm scared about this, or I'm scared about that. And I think it's not that it's, an optimism or pessimism thing. It's just the harsh reality of filmmaking is you will always have to compromise. And there are so many little things that can go wrong. And you have a limited capacity to realize that in the moment. And you have an even more limited capacity to fix that with the free time you have left. So is that kind of like you see your mind shift from gone to now, since you have more of that responsibility in the post-production?
Yeah, I think it's just reality. It's the nature of the beast. As an indie film studio doing indie micro budget movies, you only have talent for a certain amount of time, and you're also working with people who just don't have like a lot of experience on it, myself included. So, on a Hollywood set, you have a DP that's been, working behind a camera for 20 years. You have an expert sound guy, you have a ton of writers working on the script. You have a great director. So all these people are masters at their craft. With indie, it's like you have to wear all those hats, and it's very difficult to do one of those jobs, let alone three or four of them. So, you're always worried about what's going to happen. And just being through this process, understanding how easy it is to mess up a shot. Like if they get like a mic bump, you can't use that shot. So, the goal is to get as much footage as you possibly can with the highest quality as you possibly can. And, excuse me, anything less than that, you're going to have issues.
Yeah, I think one thing that even happens is almost kind of your let it slide ability when filming. You end up where like you'll see like a little bump or whatnot, and you'll be like, oh no, it'll be fine, just keep rolling. Whereas now we're more or less like, that is not fine, that is going to cause an issue, just stop it, redo it from there. Because again, you can get caught up in the momentum, and that whole fix it in post mentality, it is there, and it is one of the biggest downfalls, because it can be really demotivating. It can be really demotivating working all of this, kind of being really up on the energy and not being ready for the reality of what your movie is going to look like once you sit down with the editing. I think another process with that is, this was out when we were working with other people when it comes to filming and the editing. We do all the stuff in-house now, in the sense of, me and my brother. But with that being said, people just have different visions. They have different eyes. So even if your eye is just different from what you're looking for, when you pass that project off to someone else, you just might not be ready for what their take is. So there's a lot of things where, I think a lot of filmmakers fight this huge reality that is post-production. So speaking of post-production, what was that process like? I know we handed off to the editor, but just kind of walk me through what that whole process was like. And then we also had a fun little surprise. So we'll get to that.
Yeah. So the DP was the editor. And I think it's a powerful thing if it's done right. Because being able to shoot and edit your own footage, it just allows you, when you're behind the camera, you can kind of cut together the scenes in your head. So he was editing the movie, and I think I was on a cruise, and he like wasn't responding to anything for like 2 weeks. Finally got a hold of him, and apparently on set, he formatted one of the memory cards that had like 3 or 4 scenes in it. So we had 80% of the movie done. So I was like, all right, not a problem. Let me take a look at it. And the scenes that were deleted were just, we needed them. So, it's this decision to either, scrap it or try and fix it. So we got everyone back out there, and we did a day of reshoots to try and save the movie.
I will say this leads to, what is rule 1 of filmmaking?
Don't delete anything.
Don't delete your footage. Don't just don't do it. It's totally worth it. Now we have it triple backed up for the newest film, and still my brother refuses to remove any of the hard drives. Because if you delete your footage, that is by far the biggest blow, and it happens all the time. It happens all the time. We had a bunch of scares on set. I think we've probably done it maybe once or twice too. But rule 1 is, do not delete your footage. Just figure out, buy hard drives, get as much space as you possibly can, but just simply don't do it. Because again, you have a micro budget, and the easiest way to blow through your micro budget is having to do a reset. But one of the benefits of it is I was able to join you on set. So I came out from my first film experience. And just kind of give you a little insight in that, always wanted to make movies. I ended up making movies in high school. I won the high school film fest. If you guys want to watch Razor's Edge, it is on YouTube. It's probably one of the best movies ever made. But I was all over the writing process. I think I had something going on where I couldn't go out to gun. I mean, I was still working a sales job, so I did not have flexibility when it came to my 9 to 5, but you basically were like, hey, we're going to go out and film this. Would you want to come out and help out? And I was all over it. And at this point in time, I had the skill capacity to hold a light, I would say, is kind of what I would do. I think I maybe improved a few lines with Leo. I was trying to get like 1 or 2 lines in there, but it was just awesome being on set. It's crazy thinking how big the crew was. I think we had like 7 people there when I was there. And like now, we're filming, like our entire crew is 7 people. But it was really cool to kind of see that. And it was reshooting the day stuff and then reshooting the night, which is always a can of worms because you got to make sure that footage, blends in together. And you never know if someone just looks different one way or the other. I mean, the recent one we did, I had to try and cut my hair so it matched as much as we could. So that's always an issue. But what was how are you feeling with the reshoot?
Yeah, I felt good. It's much easier like doing pickups. Like you shouldn't want to do pickups, but when you do pickups, because you already know what you're trying to do, they're much easier. Especially with this, we were shooting the same scenes twice. Like there wasn't any variation. It was just doing the same exact thing. The actors were super nice, bringing them back out there because that was my big concern. I was like, we did this whole set, we did all this stuff. I remember having called both of them, being like, "Hey guys, like the footage got deleted, and we need you to come back out." And I was fully expecting them not to want to come out. And then if that happens, you're done. There's nothing, you can't CGI them in or anything like that. So they came out, they did a great job. It was super easy, and we got what we needed.
Yeah, I would say, one thing with that, it's just you have such limited time and you got to maximize it. And you're really rolling the dice because, again, you're opening yourself up to so many issues that can come up. Actors not wanting to come back for one reason or the other, or just not being able to make it back. So, again, it goes back to pre-production and the filming, and then the post-production is really when you're going to figure out it. So you got those footage together. I remember, and again, this is before the editing process for me. So I don't really think the first one when I started editing was the Whitlow. And I think I did a little bit of work on Unseen because I started doing the trailers for Unseen. I think that's kind of when I started getting going. But for this one, what was kind of the inserts there? Because were we still, I know we used a different DP after that incident. Did we have a different editor, or what was that for the finishing product?
Yeah, we got a whole new team for post. So we had a new editor. And this was when I was still learning how to edit Premiere. And like, guys, if you guys can learn how to do Premiere, I'd say that's probably the biggest thing you could possibly do.
There's a lot of tools online. You don't have to be the best editor. You can look at color grading, you can look at those things, and you can get the little finishing touches on it. But I think every single film maker should be able to at least paste their movie together in a timeline, because again, the editor can make or break a movie. I can take footage and make it a completely different movie one way or the other. And that was something where I didn't really get into the editing process until like the Unseen. And after that, that's when I think the gears really started rolling on our end.
I think for like editing, if you can learn the what each key does and which little tools do in Premiere, it's really just drag and drop. It's not a difficult thing to do it, and your pacing is going to be the most important thing in an indie movie. And if you can learn how to pace it properly, you can learn how to write it properly, you can learn how to shoot it properly. I give a lot of credit to good editors, and you'll see stories of like big time directors who had like their wife editor, or they've had a really good editor for, a long period of time. And then they switch editors and all of a sudden their movies are just, the pacing is off or something is off. So I think, learning how to edit properly is a very easy skill to learn. If you put in the time, there's a wealth of knowledge on YouTube that you can figure out how to do it. But it'll really help you, learn the process of filmmaking, because at the end of the day, when you're editing your film and you're missing a shot or something isn't cut together, it's your own fault, and you can take responsibility, and you're just like, I just won't make that mistake again.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things of using a different DP versus a different editor is you will get this line a lot. I can't use that footage, or the footage is bad. And one of the things you can do is if you made the own footage, what are you going to do? You did it to yourself. So I
Mhm.
think that's a friction you'll get because it's easier for an editor to kind of brush it off and say, oh, well, this footage is like this or this is that, versus you sitting down and having to be like, okay, well, how do we fix this? And that's just something that I think I've seen in the industry is when it's you know, it's one thing when someone's putting you in a bad position, but when you put yourself in the own bad position, you don't really have an out to blame anyone. So I think that's also a critical thing that happened. So we got a 30-minute thing that again is holds a special place in our hearts forever. And it was, to me, my personal opinion of it, it's just a flat movie because we didn't understand what translates to cinema and horror. We didn't understand pop scares and those things, which you're just going to learn. But you have this, you have a finished product, which is the name of the game. That is the goal. What did you end up doing from there when it came to, getting it uploaded, looking to monetize it?
Well, I remember it was stuck in post for a while, and this is like another thing of like what you want to do when you're editing is you can control how quickly it goes through post. Like you can't, if you're hiring another editor, you're going to work on their timeline, and they might have a whole bunch of other projects in there, so it can really slow down. Like I see a ton of indie films that take 6 months to a year to get it all fixed, and a lot of that could be issues, but for the most part, it's editing can be difficult. It can be tedious. So it's really hard to like just get in there and get it done. So this one took a while in post. I don't think it took too long, maybe 3 or 4 months. But when we got it done, Amazon was looking for it. So we were beta testing their upload system. We uploaded to Amazon. I think it was live within a couple of days. It was actually pretty quick.
And I can't remember, did this overlap with, I believe this overlapped with The Invited. Weren't we filming The Invited before we had gone? I think so,
Um,
right? Or was that Unseen that we did where we had
I
Invited?
feel like Gone came out when we were doing the invited pickups. Like I remember
Okay.
showing like talking to one of the actors who's in both the movies, and showing them when it came online on Amazon.
Knowing what you know now, would you ever start with like, now I think we can do it because we have a better understanding of it. But I think one of the biggest things I would recommend to any indie filmmaker is finish your first project before starting another one. Simply because you will get a wealth of knowledge when it comes to what's better and what's worse or whatnot. Because, seeing the finished product is when you can really say, that works, that doesn't work. We're never doing that again. Let's always do that. So, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that if you watch like movies 6 through 8, um, we're really backed up on post. There's just a lot of issues with those movies. There's a lot of issues with the footage. A lot of pickups needed to be made. And I think at that time we had 3 movies like in post production that weren't even up. Um, and now like my goal is to get this the new movie up before we start the next one. I don't know if it's going to happen.
I better.
It's at the point now where like I know what mistakes we made, and how not to do them for the next one. And I think that's the big thing. It's like you have to really sit down and be like, all right, this is what we did well. Try and find 3 or 4 things you did really well that you can take and put in another movie, and then try and find like the things that just did not work, and just don't do those again. And I think a lot of good, like it just comes back to reps. Like a lot of people who are really good in this industry, they just have the experience. It's not that they're more talented than other people, or they're more creative. They just know where those landmines are, and they know not to step on them. Just don't write this scene. Don't shoot it this way. Like, don't shoot stuff in cars. So it's like you kind of, as you go through this, we have a whole bunch of stuff that works, we have a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't work. And then we just, when we shoot another movie, we try a few new things, here or there to see how it works. But, a third of the movie isn't going to be, new risky stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that's one of the bigger things that ends up happening when you look at, first time producers and first time indie, is it ends up being something where, you don't know until you know, and you only know when you finish the project. So was there anything else that, you felt stuck out to you from Gone? Or, again, to me, it's one of those ones where it's always number one. I think we have a special place where we got some of the super fans watching Gone right now, and they're, it's great to be able to look back and say, this was the first one that kicked it all off. And that's the cool thing with filmmaking, but at the end of the day, when you get through it, if you do get through it, you'll end up having this product that's there for life. So was there any last things that kind of hold a value to you from that production?
Obviously it's the first one, and it's a huge testament to anyone who has the ability to make their first film, whether it's short or feature length or in the middle like this one, and actually upload it and put it on, somewhere where people can view it and get feedback. Mad respect for that. And just a shout out to the team that worked on this one, the writers, everyone that had a piece in this project. They were all new too. And the fact that we all came together, got something done, overcame some hurdles. But we got it up there. We could look back. We had some great feedback on it. And we learned a lot in the process. So, it holds a special place in my heart. And it's just crazy looking back on it. If I had to make a sequel to it, we definitely have the knowledge and the ability now to make something really cool.
So what I would like to do with a lot of our first movies is refilm them word for word and scene for scene, but just with a lot of better equipment. So I think eventually you might see that if I have enough money to have that crazy project. Because again, these are micro budgets, they're super tiny, but it's something about horror films and the genre that you gotta love. So that wraps it up for our first film. Again, we have a lot more to cover, and we're gonna keep on giving you updates on the new ones. Again, if you want to follow us, please do. We have Instagram, TikTok, DBS Films. The best way to find us, though, is going to be our Discord channel, because we have a whole bunch of behind the scenes stuff. We work with our super fans who are amazing. You get to watch the movie before it comes out. You get to read the scripts before we make them. We also look at casting our super fans, because it's something where we want people who are passionate with the project as well, too. So as always, we thank you for your support. We are going to keep making movies, and until then, we will see you guys later.